Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is Thursday. I hope you all are doing really well. I hope you all are looking forward to the weekend. Only one more day in work to go if you're working 9 to 5. Some of you might work at the weekend. In that case, you probably aren't looking forward to it. But it is Thursday. I like Thursdays. It isn't the topic of this live stream. We're not going to just sit here and talk about Thursdays, but I do like Thursdays. It signals the end of the week. Friday's always a decent day. So yeah, I hope you all have had a fantastic day. We're going to talk about some news today, the latest Everton news. We've got injuries to talk about. We've got some news regarding the medical staff, and we've got some transfer rumours to get into as well. So if you are enjoying and you're watching it live, don't forget to get your thoughts on everything that we're talking about in the live comments beside of us. If you're watching a YouTube video, get your thoughts down below in the YouTube comments and we'll get involved with as many of them as we can. Hit them likes if you're enjoying the video as well. And let's get straight into it. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. Former Everton midfielder Ross Barkley has once again been linked with a move back to Goodison Park. Now this is according to Team Talk, who granted on the most reliable source, or certainly, again, I've said this numerous times, I'm not going to sit here and discuss reliability of various different sources, but I've noticed this source has linked Everton with various different players over the last 12, 18 months or so, and a lot of them haven't come off, so it's not like it's coming from, you know, The Athletic, or even the Liverpool Echo, or Sky, anybody like that. It's coming from Team Talk, and they have said that Newcastle United are leading the race for Chelsea midfielder Ross Barkley. Leeds United and Everton are also said to be interested, with a loan to buy deal likely. Now we can sit here all we like and say that, you know, that doesn't seem like it, you know, it would be truthful, or that's a rumour that, you know, doesn't seem very believable, but, you know, in my opinion, it's a rumour that does seem believable, to be perfectly honest with you, and that's not because I think Everton should be targeting Ross Barkley. In fact, I don't think Everton should be targeting Ross Barkley. However, it wouldn't surprise me if Everton were looking at bringing Ross Barkley back to the football club. Now, there was a point, you know, last year, I think before James Rodriguez come to the football club, when Ross Barkley had just signed for Aston Villa on loan, and there was a point where there was a lot of conversation surrounding Ross Barkley amongst Evertonians, whether or not we should have gone back in for him, whether or not it'd have been a good loan move, you know, to bring him back to the football club, try and get his head settled down and working hard and battling. And that's because when he went to play under Dean Smith at Aston Villa for the opening couple of weeks or so, he was fantastic. He was absolutely fantastic, and you know, he really settled in. He formed a partnership with Jack Grealish, and John McGinn and Aston Villa's forwards, and he actually started to, you know, get his head down and work hard. And, you know, as I said, I think he scored a goal in that you know, that win against Liverpool, that big 7-2 win, and he looked really promising. He looked really good, and I remember thinking, should we have maybe gone back in for Ross Barkley? Should we have maybe took that gamble on bringing him back to the football club and seeing if he could settle down and start, you know, almost kickstart his career again? Obviously 4 or 5 years after leaving the football club, but it slowed down for him very quickly at Aston Villa. Very quickly for Aston Villa. Hang on a minute, me computer's just going all sorts of ape because I'm getting messages through left, right and centre. I do apologise about that. But it slowed down for him, you know, very quickly at Aston Villa. All of a sudden he went from a player who was in form and performing and, you know, as I said, scoring goals, creating chances, looking like he'd almost been sort of re-energised by the move, to picking up some injuries. And injuries have always been a thing that Ross has struggled with throughout his career. You know, both at Everton and Everton and beyond Everton, you know, form and being able to get any sort of consistent game time has been a big problem for Ross Barkley, and a large reason for that is because of the injuries that he's picked up. Injuries started to creep up on him. He wasn't getting as much game time as he was when he first joined Aston Villa, and it got to a point where Dean Smith at the time, you know, one way or another, for lack of a better phrase, he probably didn't word it exactly like I'm going to word it, but effectively said, you know, no, we won't be signing Ross Barkley on a permanent deal. He'll be returning to Chelsea. And from what I gathered on social media, and obviously social media isn't a complete indication of how a fan base is feeling, but from what I gathered on social media and stuff, the majority of Aston Villa fans weren't particularly bothered by that decision by the manager. They weren't in uproar that they hadn't signed him on a permanent deal. They weren't sitting there screaming and shouting about how good he'd been on loan. It was almost like an acceptance of, yeah, he's come in on loan, he's done all right. You know, we've not really got any interest in signing him, especially for, you know, signing him for a fee that Chelsea would probably demand, which I would assume would be upwards of 10, 15, 20 million pounds. You know, Chelsea, they don't like to get rid of their fringe players, if you like, for cheap. We saw that ourselves with Romelu Lukaku turned out to be an absolutely fantastic signing for Everton, but at the time he was not getting in the Chelsea team. He was out on loan every year, and they ended up selling him for 28 million pounds, which was baffling back in you know, whatever it was, 2013, 2014. So again, that loan for me, that loan at Aston Villa was a massive indication as to why Everton shouldn't go anywhere near Ross Barkley. It was a good chance for Ross to not only get his head down and prove that, you know, he's still got it, or he's still got something to offer, but also prove that, you know, okay, he mightn't necessarily be a player that can compete at the level that Chelsea are at, i.e. Champions League finals and challenging for the league, but for a mid-table Premier League club who were trying to get into Europe, which is what Aston Villa were at the time, and shock horror, what Everton are at the moment, you know, he had the chance to prove that he could have been a valuable player for them, and as I said, in the opening couple of weeks he did. He got his head down, he scored goals, he worked hard. Beyond that, once he started to pick up injuries, once his form dropped, once, you know, he wasn't getting that consistent game time, he was in and out the Aston Villa team. There was times when he wasn't even getting on the pitch in games for Aston Villa, and that's when you really look at it and think, you know, again, he's obviously not that great because he can't get in an Aston Villa team who, you know, aren't unbelievable. They're a good side, but they're not unbelievable. It's almost like the Kieran Dowell argument. I've seen a couple of people on Twitter, you know, over the last couple of weeks. Why didn't we go for Kieran Dowell? Why didn't we sign, you know, why did we let Kieran Dowell go? The lad can't even get on Norwich's bench, and that Norwich team is absolutely awful. So that shows you, you know, everything you need to know about the level of Kieran Dowell at the moment. But look, no, in reality, as I said, for me, you know, that loan was a big opportunity for Ross to really sort of, you know, almost get his head down and show that he's still got something there. He's 27 years old now. He's not 23, he's not 24, he's not, you know, he's not making these mistakes that we'll talk about in a moment. He's not having these injuries, he's not having this inconsistency as a young lad. He should be at his prime at the moment. He should be at his prime. He should be at a stage where you're looking at him going, you know, again, I'm not necessarily going to sit here and saying he should be at a stage where he's a whale beater and winning titles and this, that and the other, because he's not that good of a player, and he mightn't be that good of a player, but he certainly should be at a stage where he can be relied on, where you know he's going to turn up week in, week out, where he's a seasoned professional. If Everton signed Ross Barkley, he'd be one of the oldest players in the squad. He'd be somebody that the younger players would look up to and think, right, I want to aspire to have, you know, the work rate that Ross Barkley has. I want to aspire to be where Ross Barkley is. And the reality is, some of the young players in our squad are probably further than Ross Barkley. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, younger than Ross Barkley, much further ahead of him in terms of football and progress. Richarlison, very similar situation. You know, Yerry Mina is younger, I believe, than Ross Barkley as well. Again, further along that development. So for me, it just doesn't make any sense. I understand that Ross Barkley, the type of player that Ross Barkley is probably the type of player that Everton still need. I get that completely, and I would love Everton to go out and sign a Ross Barkley-esque player, i.e. a midfielder that picks the ball up, isn't afraid to run with the ball, isn't afraid to run at opposition. I remember watching Ross in his breakthrough season for Everton in that 2013-14 season under Roberto Martinez, when we finished 5th and were challenging for the top 4 up until the last week of the season, and he was absolutely outstanding, fearless, you know, got his head down, ran at plays. I remember the goal he scored away to Newcastle, you know, got his head down and ran from our edge of the box all the way into the opposition box and slotted it. He scored a free kick against Swansea, which was absolutely unbelievable. And he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. I think he scored a worldie against Norwich as well, worldie against City, I remember that one. And he was fantastic. And he was at that level when he was 18, 19 years old, and there was these conversations about him being in the England team, going away with England for the World Cup, this, that and the other. You know, are Everton going to be able to keep him? And then as I said, you know, the further his career went on with Everton, the more injuries he started to pick up, and then obviously he forced his way out, or seemingly forced his way out. Now, that's another big thing for Ross Barkley for me, is we're not talking about an ex-player who, you know, as I said before, we're not talking about an ex-player who's gone on and showed that he's still, he's still a player that could improve Everton. Now, maybe in the one-off game he'd bring something, because he's still got that quality. We saw it on his loan move at Aston Villa, but over a consistent period of time, would Ross Barkley improve Everton. I'm not too sure he would. But also that relationship with fans has just been shattered from the way in which he left the football club. Ultimately, Ross Barkley would have to be an absolute world beater, Premier League Player of the Year, scoring 15, 20 goals and getting 10, 15 assists a season, I think, for Evertonians to, and want to come back to Everton, for Evertonians to look at him and go, okay, we can get past the feelings towards him as a fella, because he's clearly going to come in and improve this football club. But the reality is he's not at that level. There's a very sour relationship between him and the fans because of the way in which he left. I don't need to go into the story. We all know it. Now, yes, there was probably other people at fault for the way in which Ross Barkley left the football club. Ronald Koeman could have probably done a little bit more, or in fact could have probably just not been at the football club in the first place. Maybe Steve Walsh. There was a lot of factors that went into Ross Barkley's exit from Everton, but the reality is, the story that the majority of Evertonians believe is that Ross Barkley wanted to leave the football club, had an opportunity to leave the football club for what 30 odd million pounds at the time, decided to sit on the injury table for an extra 6 months and then leave for half the price in the summer and do us out of 15, 16 million pounds, whatever it was at the time. And as I said, that massively soured the relationship between Ross and Evertonians. Now, Ross himself has never really... It's a mad one, really, because when you think of this type of situation and an ex-player who, you know, isn't massively liked by Evertonians, you think of, like, you know, Wayne Rooney in the early 2000s when he'd come back to Goodison and he kissed the Man United badge and he'd celebrate in front of the Goodison crowd and he'd really wind, you know, Evertonians up. And other ex-players have done it. Arteta done it every single time Arteta comes to Goodison for Arsenal. He threw dirty challenges in, or he tried to wind people up, or he was getting under the skin of people, or he was arguing with Leighton Baines. He was trying to get under the skin of Evertonians. Ross Barkley's never really done that, I don't think, considering Ross has got, or considering the Evertonians have got such a, or a lot of Evertonians have got such a, you know, negative relationship towards Ross Barkley, let's say it that way, that's being kind. He's never really reacted to that in himself, in his games or on social media. He's never really, you know, he's never scored against us to celebrate, but I don't think he would if he did. You know, there's been a number of posts on social media of his time at Everton where he's referenced his time at Everton. I think Everton have tweeted a couple of videos out, the official Twitter account, of some of his goals, and he's replied to them. So he's never really... Again, he's never, maybe not acknowledged that sour relationship, but maybe he sees Everton Football Club and the Evertonians as two different, two different things. But the reality is, his relationship with fans, or the majority of fans, at least I think it's fair to say, is very, very sour. And I just don't think this would be the right move for him or for Everton, for him on that basis, and for Everton in the fact that, as I said, this would have been a much different conversation for me had he have gone out on loan last season to Aston Villa and absolutely lit it up, consistently performed, scored goals consistently, created chances, you know, went the whole season without picking up any injuries, and got to a point where Aston Villa were desperate to sign him, absolutely desperate, like we were with Romelu Lukaku, like we were with, you know, Gareth Barry, like we were with, you know, however many other players we've had on loan, Mikel Arteta, over the years, where their loan period is finished and we've been absolutely desperate, Andre Gomez, to sign them at the end of it. Then I'd probably be sitting here saying, do you know what? Maybe going for Ross Barkley wouldn't be too bad of an option, because he's not, okay, he hasn't got a relationship with fans, but he's the type of player that we need, and he's showed in an Aston Villa shirt that for a side that are challenging for Europe and sort of sitting mid-table in the Premier League like Everton, he could do it. So, you know, maybe it would be worth that, considering he's the mould of player that we need, and he is the mould of player that we need. I'd 100% say that a midfielder who can pick the ball up and fearlessly run forward, score goals, got a good left and right foot on him. That's the type of player that we need. But the reality is, there's a lot of footballers that are like that aren't Ross Barkley. But you know, as I said, the Aston Villa loan for me, I looked at it and I thought, what would you bring to Everton that ultimately would make a huge difference? Is the odd decent performance, you know, say Ross Barkley come to Everton and played 20 Premier League games. Now, let's say he signed in January and played, I don't know how many games, you know, we've got left in January, played, let's say, a quarter of the games, or two quarters, half the games we have left, and he spent the rest out on injury, and in those half of games he had left, he performed in one or two of them. would that be worth the move, considering Chelsea would arguably want a considerable fee for him, because they do with every player? Or, yeah, some would say, we'll bring him on loan and see how he does, see how he works. But, again, Ross's performances and Ross's career, injuries at times haven't been down to him. It just is how it is. He's an injury-prone player. He's always picking up injuries. He's always sidelined. He's 27 now. I'm not sure it's worth the risk. I'm really, really not. Also, again, I don't want to go into his personal life or outside of football, because I'm really not in a position to judge that. But the reality of the situation is, he's 27 years old, and not even 12 months ago, he was pictured absolutely bladdered in a restaurant, having to be escorted out because he was misbehaving and making too much noise. This is a Premier League footballer. He was doing that when he was 18, 19 at Everton. A lot of people put it down to him being 18, 19, being a kid. That's fine. A lot of young footballers make those mistakes. 27 years old now, and he's still making those mistakes. It's just, for me, it just, again, it doesn't make any sense. And as I said at the start of the team, this is a transfer that I don't understand, but I do understand at the same time. And by that, what I mean is, I don't understand why Everton would be interested in bringing Ross back to the football club. There's one reason why I think Everton, or somebody at Everton, officials, directors, whoever it may be within Everton, there's one reason why I think they might be interested in bringing Ross Barkley back to the football club. And I'll tell you it in about 2 minutes. I'm going to get into the comments in a moment, but I'll see if anybody can guess it in the live comments before we do that. We'll get a little bit of interaction going. See if you can guess the one reason why I believe Everton would want to bring, or somebody within Everton would want to bring, Ross Barkley back to the football club. But for me, as I said, it's a transfer that I don't get, because he has had the loan at Aston Villa, very similar club to Everton in terms of where they are league position-wise, progression-wise. Yes, he had a couple of good games, he had a good start to that loan, tailed off massively, was benched for a large part of towards the end of his loan, and then Aston Villa come to the decision that they weren't going to sign him, and he also had an injury for a large part of that loan as well. But I do think that, again, I don't read that rumour and think, yeah, that's utter nonsense, that. Not a chance Everton are being for him. I read the rumour and think, why would we go back for Ross Barkley at this stage in his career? But I also read it and think, it wouldn't surprise me if we did go back in for Ross Barkley. It really, really wouldn't. Now, I understand that some would say, for a loan for a year, again, nothing to gain, nothing to lose. Sorry, if he doesn't play well, he goes back to Chelsea. Maybe, again, loan deals are very, very low risk. Very, very low risk. You bring a player in, if they don't perform, they leave at the end of the season. Villa's seen it with Ross Barkley. We've seen it with various players over the years. Jabril Sidibe being the one that comes to my head from most recently. Comes to the football club, either performs or doesn't perform. If they perform for a year, then, we might go in for them in the following summer and give them a contract. If they don't, then they go back to the parent club, and there's ultimately no negatives to that. And maybe some would argue that Ross Barkley getting an opportunity to return to Everton, getting his head down, boyhood club and all of that stuff, you'd see the best out of him again. I don't know. I really, really don't know. I don't know if you would, to be honest with you. And as I said, he wouldn't be returning on the basis that every single Evertonian would be behind him. I'd like to think that the majority of Evertonians will be behind him, because as I've always said, if you're wearing that Everton shirt, I'll get behind you until you give me a reason to not get behind you. Similar with managerial appointments. But let's be honest, that's not how a lot of Evertonians, that's not how a lot of football fans think. So if Ross Barkley was to sign for Everton, there'd be a lot of Evertonians that instantly were on his back because of what he did, and the way in which he left the football club them years ago. So it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense to me. He might go out on loan again in January to somebody else. Somebody mentioned Newcastle in the live comments, and be absolutely unbelievable. And I might be sitting here completely eating my words come the end of the season. But that was what I thought I'd be doing after the Aston Villa loan. I thought I'd be sitting here when he moved to Aston Villa and he played in that 7-2 win against Liverpool. I sat there watching the game, in between the hysterical laughing. I sat there and thought, are we gonna, as Evertonians, are we gonna get to the end of the season and think we should have took that gamble on Ross Barkley? He looks comfortable now. He looks mature. He looks grown up. He looks like he's sort of got his head down. And maybe the Aston Villa loan was another sort of move for him where he couldn't quite settle and he couldn't quite get his head down and he couldn't quite work it. Maybe he needs another loan at another club and, he'll perform there. But he just didn't massively impress me. If Aston Villa, and again, no disrespect to Aston Villa, but if Aston Villa are looking at him at the end of the season and thinking, we don't want to bring you in on a permanent, then why should Everton, who for me are a bigger club than Aston Villa and are ahead of Aston Villa, but that's only marginally. We're very, very similar in regards to league position and all of that sort of stuff. We'll finish very, very similar at the end of the season. So why would Everton go for a player who Aston Villa have determined not good enough for them? That's the way I see it. But anyway, let's get into some of the live comments because I'm really, really intrigued to hear what everybody has got to say about this, because I do think there might be a little bit of a split in opinion, to be honest with you. V-Rail Football says, hello. Alright, Cam, what's happening, mate? Hope you're doing well. If you're enjoying, by the way, please hit that thumbs up button. It only takes a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. That would mean an absolutely massive amount to me. 50 people watching. If you could get those likes up, that would be absolutely brilliant. You'll notice in the title of the live stream, I've titled it Ross Barkley linked with Everton move again. The reason for that is because I can't even begin to count how many times Ross Barkley's been linked with the move to Everton over the last 12, 18 months, something like that. This might just be his agent. It might just be his agent, looking at the January transfer window coming up and thinking, listen, Ross isn't getting much of a look in at Chelsea. I know he's come off the bench a couple of times this season. He's not getting much of a look in at Chelsea. Let's tout his name around to various mid to low table Premier League clubs and hope one of them takes a gamble on him, at least on loan, come the end of the season. Somebody might be sitting here listening to this from Everton now thinking, we're not interested in Ross Barkley whatsoever. RG Allen says, can't see him coming back. He will take the cash on, go to Newcastle. Interesting. Well, again, Newcastle are one of those sides that are rumoured to be heavily interested in him, and I actually think the Newcastle move would be a good move for Ross Barkley. Ultimately, if Ross Barkley can't shine in that Newcastle team, then he's not really going to shine in many a Premier League side, is he? Let's be honest, because there's not many worse than that Newcastle team at the moment. There's not. Eddie Howe has got an absolutely gargantuan job on his hands, with the exception of Norwich and maybe Watford, and there's an argument for Watford. I don't think there's a worse side than that Newcastle side in the Premier League. So if Ross Barkley is to go to Newcastle, yes, he will be paid a ridiculous amount of money, probably because of the new ownership and all of that sort of stuff. However, the task on his hands would be gigantic. He would have to go out and prove himself to be the best player. If Ross Barkley is, the Ross Barkley that we thought he could be when he was 18, 19 years old at Everton, then he'll go into that Newcastle side if he signs for them, and he'll be by far the best player in that team. Outstandingly clear, he will be the best player in that side, comfortably week in, week out. But as I said, even if he did that, can he go a full 4 or 5 months without an injury? I don't know. I really, really don't know. Where are we? Pokey says, great, injury prone Ross Barkley. If he was injury free, could see him finding his passion again for footy, but boyo club, but not too fond on this one, to be honest, not keen on him back. Yeah, well, he's had a lot of injuries throughout his career. He broke his leg, didn't he, when he was 16, I think. And obviously he then obviously got into the Everton first team, and he spoke quite passionately about breaking his leg and how he felt at that point in regards to football, and obviously he come back from it and he got his break in the Premier League side. Maybe again, his passion isn't there. I don't know, but it's never nice to see a player who you can clearly see has got ridiculous amounts of potential pick up injuries time and time out. And maybe that was what slowed him down at Aston Villa, because he started really, really well, and then I remember picking up a couple of injuries and quite a long injury, and then he just never got back into the team. He just never got back into form. And ultimately in the Premier League, if you're a lone player or you're a fringe player, if you're Kevin De Bruyne or Cristiano Ronaldo or whoever else, and you pick up an injury for 4 or 5 months, yes, it's awful, and I'm not saying it's any easy for those players, but when you get back to fitness, you'll stay back in that starting 11. Your place is solidified in there, and whoever's filling it is only filling it temporarily while you're out injured. That's fine. If you're a fringe player or somebody that's coming on loan to try and prove themselves, or somebody that's come into a football club to try and get their head down and find the passion for football again, and you get injured for 3-4 weeks, by the time you get back to fitness, somebody else might have taken your place and might be performing really, really well, and then all of a sudden you can't get in the team, you're struggling to get on as a substitute, you're not making an impact, and it goes down from then, doesn't it? Where are we? Jason says, hi, Cam and everybody. Hi, my mate. Dennis says, played very well last week. Talking about Ross. Yeah, he did. But, look, ultimately, again, he's playing in a Chelsea side that is full of absolute superstars, isn't it, to be honest with you? This Chelsea side, for me, is just fantastic. I really, really do. Managed by, in my opinion, the best managers in the Premier League. Some would disagree. But I just think it's a fantastic side. You like Alan, says Barry. I do like Alan, yeah. Phil says, Wormy says Phil. He says Barkley is shit as well. Sam Allardyce says, I asked for Barkley and they gave me Walcott. He's right, big Sam, mate. David says Barkley adds nothing. He's lost his way since he left. Ken Wrighton is nostalgia again, says Jamie. Where Philip says, Wormy, hi. Anne says, don't go back to your ex, particularly when they have turned their back on you, like Barkley did. Yeah. Really, really good point there. Keith says, really bad move to consider. Ross's head has not been in the right place for a while. His injury record is also not good. He is also 27, 28. We can do better with a younger version of him. Yeah, it's almost like Ross Barkley is the only variant of that mould of footballer on the planet, isn't it? Because it's clear we need a Ross Barkley type of player. I.e., as I said before, a midfielder that isn't afraid to pick the ball up, drive with the ball, can score from outside the box, got a good shot on him, clever, skillful, can dribble. You know, Everton have needed that since Ross Barkley left. We haven't really replaced Ross Barkley. Yes, we've had James Rodriguez, who technically was unbelievable, but let's be honest, couldn't really move, and we knew that when we signed him. Yes, we've got players like Damari Gray, understands, etc., but we've never had a centre midfielder since Ross left that is that type of mould of midfielder, a player that can pick the ball up and just drive with it, fearlessly drive with the ball forward and create chances and score goals and get it in. Ross Barkley in that 2013-14 season used to score goals and create chances out of absolutely nothing. The goal against Newcastle at St James's Park, he ran the whole way, the whole length of the pitch, up one end to the other, and slotted it past the goalkeeper. The free kick against Norwich was from whatever it was, 20, 30 yards out. It was that sort of... He had that feeling of almost like a... Again, I'm not comparing him to a Bruno Fernandes or somebody like that, but he had that feeling of a player that, you know, Everton could look towards when we needed that special moment. Everton could look towards when we needed that moment of you know, magic. And yes, maybe you could say, well, you know, Richarlison is that now, but the different types of players, that midfielder that could drive the ball forward, and opposition teams were genuinely worried about, were genuinely scared about. But that was before. Again, he's 10 years older now than what he was then, 8, 9 years older now than what he was then, and he's had a lot of injuries since then as well. So Ross isn't the only player of that mould that is out there, but maybe Everton are looking at this and thinking he is the cheapest alternative out there. And as I said, I'm going to give that reason in a moment as to why I think Everton are interested in him. Where are we then? Anne says Barkley turned it into prime Lampard against Leicester, did nothing else that season for Villa. David says defenders will be a logical next step. Although we need to transition midfielder. Yes. Danby says I'd take him back for a year, see how it goes. Interesting. Mr. Silky Kev says we'll be linked with ex-players when they are about 40. It's the Everton way. Why would we want Ross Barkley back after what he's done? That's why we're in the state that we're in. Yeah, Eugene says Premier League have confirmed the mid-season break for the Qatar World Cup. They have. Dave says a striker wouldn't be a bad move either. About 150 million should do it. Mr. Usmanov. Well, look, I doubt we're going to spend 150 million on a striker whilst Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin are still at the football club, but we'll wait and see. Sam says Barkley will be one of the better players in the Everton team, just behind Dom, Rich and Deuce. But on his day, yeah, probably you're right. On his day, if you've got 100% Ross Barkley, with his head in the game, confident, you know, wanting to play, injury free, you know, looking forward to the game, full of positive energy, then yeah, you're probably right. On his day, Ross Barkley would be one of the better players in the 17 team, but how often will he have his day? That's the big question, isn't it? How often will his day be? You know, how often will he be out on the injury table? How often will he turn up and not perform and hide in games because he can't really be bothered? That's me worry with it. Philip says, what I'd do, what I wouldn't give for Duncan McKenzie in his prime. Yeah, where would he play? Says Dennis, Sunday morning, Stanley Park. Says Philip. And Gavin says he cost us 20 million, but yeah, Brands cost us 60 by signing Amobi and Kabaman. Yeah, but, you know, one bad signing doesn't make up for 2, not great signings, does it? I really would be interested to hear what you think on this. Would you? It's simple. In fact, do you know what I'm going to do? It's that simple that I'm going to put a poll in the live comments. We done these polls every single stream whilst the managerial appointment was whilst the managerial saga was going on. We talked about what managers we wanted. We done it with Rafa Benitez, and we went from people being not happy with Rafa to people being happy with Rafa. So I'm going to do a poll. Would you take Ross Barkley? Hang on, I can't spell Ross Barkley back. It's a simple poll. It'll be in the live comments in about 20-30 seconds. Yes or no. Simple answer. Would you take Ross Barkley back? Let's say that the assumption is Everton would be interested in a loan deal with an option to buy at the end of it, from January to the end of the season, and then an option to buy. There you go. I've put it in the live comments. Now, if you're watching live, 50 people watching, get involved in that poll. Let us know, and we'll be able to gauge a round number toward the end of the live stream of how people are feeling. It's a simple question. Would you take Ross Barkley back? Yes or no. If you're watching as a YouTube video, then I don't think you can vote on the poll. So leave your thoughts in the comments, and we'll get straight involved with any of them. If you're enjoying while you're there as well, please leave a like. Only takes a second. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe. Yeah, there you go. We'll get back into the live comments in a moment. But anyway, yeah, the reason I think Everton are interested in Ross Barkley, simple really. He's played for Everton before. No, look, there's a thing going on at Everton at the moment which worries me a little bit, and it's that sort of mentality of a sort of jobs for boys mentality, if you like. And what I mean by that is people being employed by the football club and people getting jobs because they've got former links with the football club, i.e. they played for the club, or they were in the academy, or they once were a coach or something like that. It's not a way to go. There shouldn't be anybody at this football club that can't do their job properly. I don't care if you're an Everton legend. I don't care if you've played 10 minutes for Everton. I don't care if you've scored 100 goals for Everton. If you're employed by this football club to do a certain job and you can't do that job, I don't give a shit what you've done for the football club in your past. You need moving on. Simply. There's a lot of rumours floating around about Jose Baxter getting a job, which, again, that's a topic for another conversation. We've just seen Franny Jeffers leave the football club after being employed by the club for a long, long time. I'm not too sure why he was still at the football club. There's a lot of questions surrounding David Unsworth and his ability to do his job for the under-23s. So there seems to be this mentality of you can get a job at Everton as long as you've played for Everton before, or you've managed Everton, or you've coached at Everton. It doesn't really matter if you're good at the job that you're being employed to do, but if you've got a past with the football club, then they'll employ you. And I feel like the Ross Barkley situation maybe just sort of falls into that category a little bit. We need that type of player, and instead of going out and looking for that type of player, why don't we just go for Ross Barkley? He's played at the club before, he's a Premier League player, this, that and the other. Why don't we go and get him? Ignoring the fact that he's got a poor relationship with the fans, or the fans have got a poor relationship with him, ignoring the fact that Chelsea would probably want a ridiculous amount of money for him, the fact that his injuries record isn't great, his age, the fact that his consistency isn't there, but he played for Everton once, so we'll go and make that move. That's almost my gut feeling as to why I think Everton are being linked with Ross Barkley, because it's the easy move, it's the easy option, it's the easy decision for the club to make. We need a midfielder who's not afraid to run with the ball and got the ability to take players on, score goals. We could go and look and scout some players that have got that ability, or we could just go and bring in an ex-player who has been at the club before. And that for me is the wrong way of looking at things. There's also another way. There's also another sort of side of it, as I mentioned before, of that the club might be looking at it thinking Ross Barkley is the cheapest and best alternative to fill this position on the pitch. It's all well and good saying the club could look at other options, but other options for players in that mould. Let's be honest, if you've got a good quality midfielder who can run with the ball, can score goals with both feet, is good at hitting the ball from outside the box, can take players on, can dribble, isn't particularly slow, isn't massively fast, but isn't particularly slow, that mould of player is probably going for 40-50 million plus if they can do that week in, week out in the Premier League. So maybe the club are looking at Ross Barkley and thinking it's a cheap alternative for that type of player. But as I said, The negatives are, how often is Ross Barkley going to be able to do that? How often is Ross Barkley going to be able to bring that side to Everton? So there you go. They're my thoughts on it. I don't think Everton should be going for Ross Barkley. But I would not be surprised if Everton do go in for Ross Barkley. To be honest with you, I wouldn't. I think his low move at Aston Villa was an indication as to why it's probably not the right move. I don't not want us to sign him because he left in a poor manner or for anything like that. I look at his loan move at Villa last season. I think, well, they're in a similar position to where Everton are, and he didn't succeed there. So what is showing me that he's going to succeed at Everton? Because he was an Evertonian growing up, or because he played for us, or because he had a brilliant season in 2013-14? Are they the only reasons that we're holding on to an assumption that he'll do well at Everton? Because let's be honest, he hasn't done particularly well since he's left Everton, has he? And granted, he mightn't have got an awful lot of opportunities at Chelsea, but when he hasn't been particularly great. So, yeah, there you go. Listen, let us know in the live comments. If you're watching the live comments, you can type a more detailed comment on why you would or wouldn't you would or wouldn't want Ross Barkley back at the football club, or you can just vote on that poll in the live comments now. 46 people watching, so get your votes in on that poll. I can tell you now, don't know when the poll, there's 20 people that have voted, and it's split directly down the middle, 50-50. 50-50 on whether people would want Ross Barkley back or not want Ross Barkley back. So if you haven't voted already on the poll, go and give it a little vote, because that'd be really, really interesting. Because I'm not going to lie, out of 20 votes, 50-50 shocks me a little bit. 50% of people that have voted so far would want Ross Barkley back at the football club. I'm interested to know. Let us know why in the live comments, and let us know why you wouldn't want him back either. And let us know if you think I'm chatting utter nonsense, by the way. Anyway, let's get into some of the other topics of the live stream. We will get back into the live comments very, very shortly. So don't forget to continue leaving your comments. That would be absolutely fantastic. Everton have released some images today that have suggested, Everton have released an image today that is of Yerry Mina back in training. Absolutely fantastic news, of course. Yerry has been a massive, massive miss over the last few weeks or so. We obviously haven't seen him since the last international break, which is mad considering we're now in another international break. He played 3 games for Colombia within the space of, what was it? About 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe. I think he played the entirety of 90 minutes in 2 of them, and he played 100 minutes in the other one because there was 10 minutes at a time. And we haven't seen him since. He picked up an injury whilst on international duty, and he has been recovering since then. But good news, he's back in training. He's been pictured back in training. The club have confirmed that he's back in training as well. So the hope is, touch wood, fingers crossed, that come the game against Manchester City, after the international break, of course, not this weekend, next weekend, he will be fit. Because we really, really need Yerry Mina against Manchester City. I thought Ben Godfrey and Michael Keane played well against Tottenham on Sunday. I thought they were much better than what they have been in recent weeks. However, let's be honest, against a side like Manchester City, we absolutely need Yerry Mina in there. We saw how comfortable it was for Manchester City to get through Michael Keane and Ben Godfrey on the final game of last season at the Etihad, and I don't want to repeat that again. Look, I'm not under any illusions that this will be an absolutely, ridiculously difficult game of football, and Everton it will be unbelievable if Everton in this current stage could come out with anything at the Etihad. But if we are to come out with anything, for me, I think Yerry Mina needs to start. He absolutely needs to start. And I think everybody would agree with me on that as well. So brilliant to see Yerry Mina back in training ahead of that game against Manchester City. But as always, when there's good news, there's very often bad news to go with it. As the saying says, do you want the good news or the bad news? I've given you the good news. Unfortunately, now I'm going to have to give you the bad news. The Athletic released an article today talking about Danny Donacci, who has left the football club. We're going to go on to talking about that in a moment. But also in that same article, they have stated that it is unclear how much longer Dominic Calvert-Lewin will be sidelined. There is a chance it could be until late December. Yeah. I told you, I warned you that there was good news and there was bad news. Savile says, are you Jamie Carragher in disguise? I'm much better looking than Jamie Carragher, mate, and I've got much less money. So, no. Yeah, I told you, look, there's good news and there's bad news. Great news that Yerry Mina is back training with the team. as I said, hopefully he'll be fit for Man City, but unfortunately, the only update on Dominic Calvert-Lewin is that there's a worry that he could be out until late December. Now, that isn't confirmed. That isn't confirmed whatsoever. There was a worry that Abdoulaye Doucouré was going to be out for much longer than it seems he will be out for, and then we had a much more positive update on him in more recent weeks. However, it's not great, is it? It's not great. Listen, we've been crying for Dominic Calvert-Lewin to return to fitness since he got injured, really, haven't we? I mean, let's be honest, we've been crying for Dom to return back. Obviously, he looked almost certain to return a few weeks back. He then obviously picked up another injury. He further damaged, his muscle. Obviously, he had a broken toe at the start of the season. Played through that, scored 3 goals in 3 games, even with a broken toe. He then picked up a thigh strain, and since then has been out with that same injury. As I said, he was close to returning a few weeks back, and then obviously picked up a further knock, and obviously is now still out, injured. And as I said, the only news we've got is it looks like there's a worry that he could be out until late December. Obviously, massively disappointing. Massively disappointing. To news, massively disappointing. To read Dominic Calvert-Lewin, it still baffles me how some Evertonians don't seem to rate Dominic Calvert-Lewin. The lad is absolutely unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. He's continuing to improve year in, year out. He scored, more than 20 goals last season in all competitions. He spent periods of last season out injured as well. He's shown on a number of occasions that his commitment to improving as a footballer and his commitment to Everton Football Club is up there with the very best at the football club and the very most committed. He always gives 100%. He's very rarely out injured. We spoke on the television last week about wanting to get back as soon as he possibly can because he feels helpless. And ultimately, we need him back. Whether you like it or not, we need him back. We need him back as soon as possible. We saw it on Sunday against Spurs. 2 or 3 really good crosses put into the box. Really good balls flashed across the box. And nobody was quite there to get on the end of it. Nobody was quite there to, turn it away. Or, again, I can't remember who put a cross in, but there was a really good ball, aerial ball put into the Tottenham box. And there wasn't a Tottenham defender in sight. And it just whizzled over everybody and ended up going out for a throw-in. And, I remember looking at it directly from my seat in the park end thinking, Dominic Calvert-Lewin's on the pitch, that's 1-0. That's absolutely 1-0. So I can't stress to you the importance of Dominic Calvert-Lewin to this Everton team. He is an unbelievably amazing human being. He's an absolutely amazing human being. He's a fantastic role model for any young boy or girl wanting to grow up and play football when they're older. He is an absolutely fantastic person, and he's a fantastic footballer as well. And when you've got, with Everton, we're not Manchester City. I said this on Sunday. I said this yesterday when we done the review to the Spurs game. We're not Man City. We can't take Dominic Calvert-Lewin out and replace him with somebody else who's equally as good and scores an equal amount of goals. We can't take Abdoulaye Doucouré out and replace him with somebody who's equally as good and has an equal impact on this Everton team. We simply can't do that. So when you take Dominic Calvert-Lewin out of this Everton team and you take a 20+ goals a season striker out of this Everton team, it's very clear that we're going to struggle. It's very clear that we're going to miss him, and we have missed him for the 2.5 months that he's been out injured. And as I said, the big hope is that it isn't late December, because that's not ideal when you consider the fixtures that we've got coming up. We've got Manchester City after the international break. We've got Brentford after that. We've got the Merseyside derby, of course, at the start of December. So the reality of Dom being back for the Merseyside derby is slim at the minute. But as I said, we've got some really difficult fixtures in December, and I've got no doubt and no problem in saying that those fixtures will be a lot easier with Dominic Calvert-Lewin on the pitch. So let's hope that this is just a worry and it isn't actual the reality of the situation. But at the moment, as I mentioned, the worry is, according to The Athletic, that Everton are concerned that there could be a chance that Dominic Calvert-Lewin will be sidelined until late December, which isn't great whatsoever. Obviously, as I said, we wish Dominic Calvert-Lewin the very best of, we wish him the very best in regards to his recovery. And if you're watching Dom, which definitely not, but if you are, please just get back fit soon, mate, because we desperately need you. Anyway, let's get back in the live comments. We have got one more story to cover before we do finish up, but let's get back in the live comments before we cover that. If you haven't already voted on the poll, by the way, 13 minutes it's been going. We'll be finishing it up around about 2 or 3 minutes before the end of the live stream. So get your votes in. 35 votes, 57 people watching. Get your votes in, and while you're over there voting, it's a like on the stream as well. It literally takes a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. That only takes a second as well. The poll is, would you take Ross Barkley back? I've got a feeling there's a couple of football fans that don't support Everton on this live stream today. You can still vote on the poll, but it doesn't really matter what you say because you're not an Evertonian. For the Evertonians out there watching, would you take Ross Barkley back at Everton? Yes or no? It's simple. Simple answer, yes or no. Let us know in that poll. Anyway, let's get into the live comments again. Where are we? Where did we finish up? Loads of comments today. Thank you all very, very much for that. Well, Eugene says, Mina back in training as the Blues keep working through the international break. Absolutely. Wormy says he is a variant of Bird, Barkley, but really outside of that, he's a 27, has proven he is average at best. No sell on if we are in a financial issues, which we are. Need to start getting players who might bring in some money. I agree. Will be a better fit for Newcastle, says Dennis. Yeah, I would actually agree, to be honest with you. I would agree. Wormy says, can he not be Decore? Cannot Barkley and Insigne incoming? Just so the people at Everton know, in case they have turned in Dennis Zakaria out of contract this summer. Dennis Zakaria to be brilliant. David says he does Denise's hair and walks Ken Wright's dogs. Sol says 6-month loan to prove himself might not be the worst thing in the world. There's clearly a player in Barkley and think he'd be an improvement on the likes of Gomez. Maybe, mate. I understand where you're coming from. I do. Again, a 6-month loan deal with no option to buy means that if he doesn't impress, then at the end of it we can just we can send him back to Chelsea and that's the end of it. If he does impress, then obviously it will be a positive for Everton. So I get that, and I get there's very low risk with those loan deals. But it's also it's the relationship with fans for me. Will fans be able to forgive Ross Barkley if he returns to Everton? I don't know. I really, really don't know. Anne says, move on in my opinion, look forward, not back, bring in a prospect with sell-on value. Maddison from Norwich for us is an example of what I mean. Yeah, I agree, mate. I absolutely agree. My mate, spot on. Wormy says, no, Barkley has had years to prove himself and he has proven to be average. I would agree with that, to be honest. I don't think injuries have helped him, but I would agree with that. David says, Zakaria and Insigne links are very strong. Wouldn't be surprised if one is agreed in January. Listen, we're very strongly linked with a lot of players every year, and they never, ever, ever come off. So let's wait and see. But I'd really, really love Dennis Zakaria. Raymond says, we're always going on about getting rid of Deadwood and his brands down the beach, attacking him more. Kay says, not sure it's down to the player. He's still a decent player, but not consistent. He was basically jogging in most of his games. Villa doesn't look motivated. Exactly. And can you imagine if Ross Barkley re-signs for Everton? There's already a little bit of a little bit of a sort of controversial element to it in regards to the fans' opinion, and then he comes on the pitch at Goodison, and when we're losing, let's say 1-0 to, I don't know, somebody shite, and he's jogging around and he's not interested, it's not going to go well. Eugene says, Everton confirmed Yerry Mina and return with latest Finch Farm update. Yes. Tom says, yes, there are better options out there, but I guess the question is, can we get the better options here anytime soon without having to buy them? Could work in a 3-man midfield with Alan. And if it's a loan at the time when we need bodies in midfield, we can jib him at the end of the season. Exactly, mate. I think that's a really good point. It's the point I was saying before is, maybe the club are looking at Ross Barkley and thinking, okay, yes, there's better options out there. And there's players within that Ross Barkley mold. But as I mentioned before, the type of player that I'm referring to in that mould of Ross Barkley, fearless, picks the ball up, runs with the ball, can score goals from outside the box, left foot, right foot, etc. That's a 30-40 million pound player without even taking into consideration Premier League experience. So maybe the club are looking at Ross Barkley and thinking, well, if he ticks the majority of those boxes and we can bring him in on a loan deal and not have any financial issue with it whatsoever, then maybe that's why they're looking at Ross Barkley. David says, Brands has brought into the core AD, Mina, Godfrey, Gray and Townsend. I don't think our problems lie with Brands. Interesting. A lot of people would say they did. Again, that's definitely another topic for another live stream. A live stream that we are going to have over the next week or so. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. That'll be a really, really interesting one. your quarterly update on Marcel Brands. Mitchell says if Barkley puts half the effort into footy than he does to party, and he'd be class. Wayne says, yeah, Dave, among the fence he was also not signed the right back, loaned out our backup left back, signed Josh King, Iwobi, Rondon, didn't sign a midfielder or any players we've made a profit on. Interesting, fair enough. Mitchell says he's another party animal. Jose Baxter. David says Brands doesn't decide who leaves, spoons. Mitchell says someone gives Ken Wright his bus pass and leg him out the club. I think Brands probably has a saying on who leaves the football club, if I'm being honest with you. Again, maybe I don't know anything. Mitchell says, read that one. It brings a wow factor, apparently, come to Eugene about Everton's new stadium. And says, regardless of his past, he isn't the level of play he should be looking at. I would agree with that. I think that's spot on. I think that's absolutely spot on. And Wayne says, I think he is part of it. I don't think he necessarily signed all the mistakes, but there are areas where Brands could do better. Certainly, he got off his arse, stopped leaving it to the last minute. He was voting yes, and he's a Red fans. Jay says Defo would take Barkley back, swapping for Brands and Holgate. Interesting. But I agree. Brands has made some massive mistakes since being at Everton. He's also brought in some good players, but he's made some massive mistakes in my opinion. But again, as I said, we'll leave that for the live stream in a couple of days. Anyway, the last topic of today is that Everton have confirmed that they have parted way with the Director of Medical Services, Danny Donacci, after new manager Rafa Benitez ordered a review of the club's injury record for key players. If you're on Twitter specifically, I don't know if Dan is on any other social medias, but you will know Dan. He engages with Evertonians. He usually puts videos up at Finch Farm and players training, and whether it be Alan or Yerry Mina, he's got a very, very close relationship with Yerry Mina. He actually put a photo up of Yerry Mina yesterday with the caption, "You will always be in my heart." So he's got a very close relationship with Yerry Mina. But obviously, for one reason or another, it hasn't worked, and Everton have parted ways with Mr. Donacci. Now, I think this is really, really interesting, because firstly, before I go into what I'm about to say, I want to say that I've got absolutely no ill feeling towards Danny Donacci in any way, any sense, way, sense or form or whatever. He seems like a genuinely really, really nice fella. He engaged with fans. He often gave us more behind the scenes than actual Everton did in terms of players training and getting back to fitness and working in the gym, etc., and personalities of the players, etc. A lot of those come from Dan Donacci. And as I said, I've got no reason to dislike him, or I'm not going to sit here and say he was awful at his job, because A, I've got no reason to, and B, as I said, I don't fully understand what his role was, and I don't fully understand why Everton have parted ways with him. I know he's had two different periods of employment by the football club. I think this one was from 2018 to now, and he had one in the early 2000s as well. But one thing I would say is that article there states that Everton have parted ways with Danny Donacci after manager Rafa Benitez insisted there was a review into the club's injury problems or crisis. I want to read the wording of it again. After new manager Rafa Benitez ordered a review of the club's injury record for key players. Now, here's why I think this is a positive. Not because Danny Donacci's left the football club. Again, I don't know whether Danny Donacci was the problem or wasn't the problem. I don't know whether he was somebody who was responsible for our injuries or somebody who was responsible for trying to get on top of the injuries. I don't know. However, the fact that the manager is coming into the football club and actively making those changes is only a positive for me. As I said, I can't sit here and say, boss, it's great that Danny Donacci's left the football club. He was obviously a massive problem, because I don't know that, and it would be unfair of me to sit here and say that. But one thing I can say is that the fact that Rafa Benitez is actively having these reviews. We spoke a couple of weeks ago about the board and how Denise Barrett-Baxendale, when she come into Everton Football Club, done a full thorough review of the whole club, and it seemed like nobody needed to leave their job and everybody was working perfectly. The fact that Rafa Benitez has been here for 10 minutes and has already demanded a review of the injury problem and why things are going as they are, and Danny Donacci has left the football club as a fallout to that review, shows that, he's not here to mess about. It shows that the manager isn't here to, just pick up a wage, get by week. Carlo Ancelotti never did this. Marco Silva never did this, as far as I was aware. Other managers in the past never did this. It shows that the manager is actively unhappy with the current injury crisis, which is understandable, because A, he's a manager that's come into the football club under in this strange manner of fans, already having, sort of a rod to beat him with before he's even managed the game for Everton because of his historical ties with a certain other football club, and be a manager who's got that sort of pressure on him already from day one, and also to add to that has had, buttons to spend in his first transfer window at Everton. So it's understandable that if he is managing Everton and ultimately seeing the likes of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison, Yerry Mina, Jordan Pickford, Luca Dean, Seamus Coleman, Abdoulaye Doucouré, all of these players picking up injuries within the opening month or two of the season, and he believes that can be, that there's reasons behind that and those reasons can be avoided, then it's good to see that he's actively going out, Rafa Benitez is actively going out and doing something about that, ordering a review as to why this is happening, because it's clear he's not happy. Not only he's not happy because our key players are getting injured, but he's also probably looking at it thinking, I've been, I was under pressure anyway when I come in, I've had nothing to spend, and now every one of my top players is picking up injuries and being out for 5, 6, 7 weeks, 1, 2, 3 months. So, as I said, nothing against Danny Donacci in the slightest. I wish him the very best of luck in the future. I really, really do. I hope whatever he goes on to do, he succeeds at it. He seems like a genuinely really nice fella. And the relationship he had with the players clearly shows that he was somebody around USM Finch Farm that the players got on with and had a good, had a good relationship with. However, I do think it's a positive that Rafa Benitez is actively out there, ordering these reviews to be had, and people are having to leave the football club, or tough decisions are having to be made because of those reviews. And again, not going to sit here and say, I'm happy Danny Donacci's left the football club, because I don't know what his role was and I don't know what he was at fault or wasn't at fault for, but it's good that the manager is actively going out there and demanding change because of, another massive issue with the football club. The injuries is a massive issue with Everton at the moment, and the fact the manager's going out there and demanding that changes is a positive for me. It shows that he is actively interested in his job. As I said, he's not just here to pick up a wage, turn up on a Saturday, manage the team, not really be bothered about how the result goes, and then go home, or turn up every day, train for an hour or so, and then get off. He's actively trying to make changes to the football club. He's actively trying to improve the football club, which for me is a massive, massive, massive positive. And Rafa Benitez has gone up in my estimations even just today. I'm not getting massively ahead of myself, because I understand results and performances haven't been great and some of his substitutions haven't been great, etc, etc, but that for me is a massive, massive box ticked to have a manager that is actively trying to make changes or making changes at the football club because he's not happy with certain things that are going against him. Anyway, there you go. That is the last article we're going to chat about. We are going to get back in the live comments, and I'm going to give everybody about another 1 or 2 minutes to let us know about the poll. What the poll is in the top right hand corner of the live chat. If you're watching live, you can get involved with it. It's simple. Would you take Ross Barkley back? Yes or no? Let us know. 49 votes. If you could get the likes up as well, that would be absolutely fantastic. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. That would be brilliant as well. Where are we? Tom says, in the kitchen on me Todd, but just started clapping at that Yerry news. Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think a lot of people will feel that way, to be honest, Tom. Calvert Dunning says, Ross Barkley has the potential to be the next Ross Barkley. Yeah, interesting. David says, I think his hands are tied. Slot should be a Huss team, but the manager's getting their players. Or should be his team, I assume you mean, Marcel Brands. Tom says, as much as we need a new midfielder, I don't want Barkley because of the way he left us, and also he's not very good. Here you go, interesting. Phil says, Ross is old news. He took the pee out of us big time. No way do I want him back. Why do Everton insist on buying pensioners who are unfit? No way. Mitchell says, Carragher's a good looking bloke, Cam. Reckon you're punching there. He's got that Roy Keane stubble. That, to be fair, you're right. I haven't got the stubble, to be fair. Get the likes in, says Tom is right, my mate. DHL over DCL, says Travel with Onions. Interesting. Again, not really sure what the next comment is, but there you go. Everton start Dingle on new priorities, says Eugene. There was guaranteed as soon as Rondon signed the contract that we would lose our striker. Yeah, the cross was from Fabian Delph, says Philip. It's right, it was. Whammy says, don't know about. I can't. Listen, I'm not gonna. I have no issue with it. I have absolutely no issue with it. I have an issue with people taking offence with it, but again, that's a different conversation for a different team. He's not a 6-yard striker, Jay. 2.5 months out, has done his career so well for his brand. He's all over the place, says Mitchell. It has, absolutely. Jay says DCL is not going to score goals outside the 6-yard box. I think he will with time. It comes with time, and it comes with, obviously, practice. And I think Dom has shown over the years that, you know, if there's anything that he's not good at, he'll work on it, and he'll work to improve it. And he's proven that on a number of occasions. We can mention his name now, surely, son. I don't know who he's referring to there. Ross Barkley. We've mentioned Ross Barkley's name. Colin says, even Dean Smith didn't want Barkley back. I would have kept Vlasic, says Ariel. Don't know Ariel. He hardly is hardly lit it up with Moyes at West Ham. Yeah. David says Voldemort was out ages ago. Andrew says that was better options than Rondon, but Rafa still went for him and he's garbage, to be polite. Yeah, understood, understandable. I get it. Stephen says, yes, Cam, you okay, mate? Don't fancy Barkley back. I'm not too bad, mate. Hope you're doing well. Raymond says, I think it was more the case that Rafa said to Rondon, if you can't get anyone else, they didn't get anyone else, so they got Rondon. Maybe. Aston Boy says, Barkley was a big I am at Villa, walking around the pitch. He doesn't deserve Everton, big name with a poor attitude. Fair play. Delamere says Everton do their best business skint, yeah. And says players with a bit to prove it, typically better than big signings. Better than big names, yeah. I would agree. Look at Damari Gray, for example. Whammy says, honestly, just one of you voters explained to me why you want Barkley back. The poll is Jared, Cam. Loads of people in the chat not interested in Barkley. No one saying yes, and yet the poll 50-50 makes no sense. Yeah, look, we're going to end the poll here then. The results are interesting, to say the least. We'll get the results in just a second. Delamere says squad depth. But that is going to do it for this live stream. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. The results are in. Would you take Ross Barkley back? Out of 56 votes, 53% said yes, and somehow 46% said no, which only makes 99%, so don't get it. But you're right where me, again, bit confused about that one. I hope people weren't just voting for the sake of, you know, trying to take the piss or having a laugh, because the poll element is a good element to the channel and the team, and it's interesting to see what people actually think. Maybe people do want Ross Barkley back, they just don't want to comment on it. Maybe that's the case, but 53% of people, which is more people than don't want him back, would want Ross Barkley back at Everton, which is interesting because most people in the live comments have said that they wouldn't. So I don't think I've seen many people. A couple of people have said why it could be a good deal. I don't think I've seen anybody say yes, they want him back. So anyway, there you go. Interesting. Listen, if you're watching a YouTube video, let us know your thoughts on Ross Barkley in the comment section. Would you take him back? Would you want him back at Everton? Let us know your thoughts on everything else that we've spoken about as well. If you've enjoyed this one, please hit that like button. Once again, massive thanks to everybody on the YouTube comments. Really do appreciate it. Means a massive amount to me. In the live comments as well. Really do appreciate it. If you've enjoyed this one, please hit that thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. We'll be back tomorrow with another live stream, so look out for that one. But until then, massive thank you all for watching, and we'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues. Cheers for watching. See you after.